Hey fellow chess learners, welcome to our channel Pawnception. Hastings, 1895. A seaside town that suddenly became the gravitation center of the chess universe. This tournament wasn't a gathering, it was an eruption. The strongest field ever assembled up to that point, Lasker rising. Shigorin roaring, Pillsbury surprising, Tarash lecturing the world, Blackburn slicing through boards, and many others whose names are written in the early genetics of chess theory. And sitting among them, Wilhelm Steinitz, the first world champion, the man who treated chess not as a brawl, but as a science of principles. Facing him was Curt von Bardeleben, talented, unpredictable, brilliant when inspired. Their game in Hastings became immortal, not simply because Steinitz won, but because Bardeleben stood up and walked away, leaving his clock to die while Steinitz demonstrated a forced mate on the board. Steinitz begins with e4, the classic opening light breaker. Von Bardeleben mirrors him with e5. It's principled, symmetrical, and classical, accepting the open fight Steinitz is inviting. The white knight develops to f3 like a scout stepping forward to test the earth. It threatens the pawn and e5, presses tempo, and claims central influence. Black defends and develops simultaneously with nc6. The bishop glides on to c4 like a painter, stroking a bright line across the canvas. Suddenly, the f7 square is the point of light. This is Italian-style pressure, aggressive yet classical. Developing to b5 was possible, but here Steinitz wants the king in his crosshairs early. Black mirrors again with bc5, accepting the invitation to an open, tactical dance. The bishops stare at each other across the center like two archers whose arrows have not yet been released. By moving pawn to c3, Steinitz prepares the central strike d4. It's like pulling an arrow back before firing, tension gathering. He could castle, but he knows timing is everything. He wants the center first. Black develops knight to f6 with tempo, eyeing the e4 pawn. Bardeleben could have gone d6, but he chooses initiative, pressure before safety. Here comes the arrow, d4. Steinitz tests the center directly. This is a declaration. Lines will open. So calculate well, Bardeleben accepts the challenge, breaking tension with ex-d4. White recaptures and builds a broad pawn center. This is the foundation stone of the Steinitz style, stable yet ready to expand. Black plays bb4 check, a check that tries to provoke weakness. It's a pebble tossed into the pawn to disturb the surface. Steinitz develops knight c3 while blocking the check. He keeps the structure clean. Playing bd2 would allow exchanges that reduce pressure, something Steinitz never wants early. Bardeleben strikes back in the center, counter-attacking instead of retreating. The move is ambitious, like pushing open a door before knowing what lies behind it. He could have castled, but chooses fire. Steinitz seizes the pawn, opening the center. It's a scalpel incision, accurate, controlled. He could ignore and castle, but he takes because timing is perfect. Black's king is still exposed. The black knight recaptures, restoring balance. Steinitz castles, stepping backward to safety so his pieces may leap forward. Black develops bishop to e6. It's like trying to shut a window before a storm. Upping the bishop on g5 becomes a hand resting gently yet decisively on the knight's shoulder. Don't move. It radiates pressure on the center. Steinitz wants to freeze Black's dynamic intentions. Bardeleben breaks the pin in the simplest way by playing b7, maintaining piece harmony. bx-d5, Steinitz simplifies on his terms. The bishop trades itself like a wise elder, stepping aside to remove the defender of the center. Keeping the bishop was also playable, but Steinitz senses the knight's influence must disappear. Black recaptures, a structural consolidation. Bardeleben preserves piece activity. White continues exchanging central attackers. It's a sculptor removing excess stone, clarifying the shape underneath. Black recaptures with the queen, entering the center like a noble entering a marketplace, powerful but also targetable. Steinitz removes Black's king side bishop on e7, the defender of the dark squares. It's like removing the guard at the castle door. He could chase the queen first, but this exchange is cleaner. Black responds, but this knight on e7 now blocks his rook and loses central influence. The rook takes the open file like a king's advisor, stepping onto the balcony to address the kingdom. It eyes e7, pressures the black's king indirectly. Other moves like qa4 plus create tactics, but lose long-term alignment. Black tries to secure e5 and blunt ideas like e5. It is defensive, a sandbag against the rising flood, but it weakens the king. Steinitz centralizes his queen on e2, connecting rooks and adding latent pressure on e7. Black retreats to d7, trying to regroup, but the queen now blocks the bishop, creating cramped darkness. At AC1, development with purpose, the rook aligns with the c-file, supporting e7 pressure. It's quiet but deadly, like loading a crossbow. Steinitz could double rooks on e1, but he senses black's queen side is the doorway. c6, black builds a wall to keep white's pieces out. But walls trap defenders as much as invaders. The pawn rushes forward on d5 like a soldier, slamming a spear into the enemy's gate. This gains space, hits the knight, and declares white dominance in the center. Black must take, ignoring the pawn loses space forever. The knight leaps into activity on d4, threatening e6, c6, f5, a whirlwind of pressure. The move feels like a hawk diving into an open field. Steinitz could play rcd1 but prefers initiative. Black steps aside by moving king to f7, refusing to castle into danger, but marching into the open isn't safer. The knight develops on e6 forks, threats like a blade with two edges, qg4 and nxg7. A dominating move showing Steinitz's calculation. Taking the knight loses instantly. Black tries counterplay on the c-file without hc8, a desperate attempt to distract a storm with a lantern. The queen joins the attack with qg4, a comet streaking toward the black king. Threats multiply, ng5 plus, nd8, qxg7, black creates air, but at the cost of dark square weaknesses. It's patchwork on a sinking ship. The knight gives a check from g5 like thunder cracking across the board. The attack becomes forcing. Steinitz now begins the famous combination. k8, the king steps back but walks closer to the edge of a net. A rook sacrifice, the kind that writers use when describing madness turning into genius. Technically, the rook removes the defender and opens lanes. Black has no choice, move to f8. The king is a hunted animal in a narrowing valley. Another rook leap, like a hammer striking a bell again and again. Every check drags the king exactly where Steinitz wants him. Black king is forced to move to g8, rg7 check. The white rook keeps guiding the king like a matador steering a bull. The black king hides in the corner, the worst place during a storm of checks. The coup de grace, white rook opens fatal lines and removes the final pawn shield. Von Bardeleben resigns, and without shaking hands with Steinitz, he walks away. Steinitz shows the cheerful audience the forced mate after Bardeleben fled, and the king steps to g8, the only square not drenched in fire. It isn't a choice, it's a man stepping back from an avalanche, knowing the second avalanche is directly behind him. The rook glides to g7, cutting off the king's escape on g7 and preparing qh4 check. This is a Draconian move, forcing the king to move exactly where Steinitz wants him. Again, no choice. The king is being marched to h8 like a prisoner down a corridor with doors slamming shut behind him. The queen finally joins the ritual with qh4 check. The mating net becomes airtight, every square is controlled. kxg7. Black king swallows the rook like poison. But consuming the rook only drags him further into the web Steinitz built. The queen steps onto h7 like a torchbearer entering a dark cave. The queen and knight together orchestrate this with geometric precision. The black king runs to f8. The queen slashes down the file with a check that feels like a verdict being read aloud. The black king is forced to go to e7. It's like being pushed from one burning room into another. The queen circles from h8 to g7 with surgical grace. ke8. Every piece of black's army might as well be made of stone. qg8 check, a straight line check. The poor black king is now oscillating because that is all he can do, shuttle between e7 and d8 while the mating net tightens. This is the moment the queen shuts the final window. From f7, she covers f8, e7, e6, and g6. The king is nearly immobile. The black king is pushed to d8, the last corner available in the maze. qf8 plus, not a killing blow yet, but the move that pins the black queen and forces her sacrifice. This is the only way to delay mate. This is the kind of move Steinitz loved, cold, logical, inevitable. The knight lands on f7 like a final signature on a masterpiece. This check forks king and queen, but the queen is already doomed anyway. It also forces the king into the final mating square. kd7. Again, forced. Every other square is poisoned. The queen places herself on d6 like a rising sun. Its mate, a clean, perfect geometric closure. The knight protects the queen cuts off all escape squares, and the black king is cornered in the center of the board. A fitting end to one of the most iconic attacking games ever played. Steinitz didn't just win a game, he demonstrated a philosophy. That attack is not chaos. That combinations are crafted like architecture. That beauty in chess emerges when calculation and courage clasp hands. This game remains immortal not because of violence, but because of design, a perfect trap woven with threads so thin and precise that the opponent chose to walk away rather than witness its completion. If you found this breakdown insightful, please like the video, share it with fellow chess lovers, and subscribe to the channel. Comment below.